sure a lot of you are familiar with William Lewis. He was an independent filmmaker that would make documentaries exposing 9/11, the coming FEMA camps, etc. I find it interesting that he made a documentary every year, almost, leading up into his death in 2015. The only year that he didn't make a documentary was 2014. I'm going to read these titles off real quick, his filmography. In 2004, it was 9/11 in Plain Sight. 2005 was Beyond Treason. 2006, One Nation Under Siege. 2007, 9/11 Ripple Effect. 2008, Washington, You're Fired. Wonder if that was a little predictive programming.
Hey, Jim Smith, you've done a hell of a lousy job. You're late and you don't treat our vets right. Jim, I'm sorry, you're fired. Get out of here. Right?
Life on the Edge of a Bubble, 2009. American Lockdown, Camp FEMA Part 1 in 2009. 2010 brought Don't Tread on Me. Enemy of the State, Camp FEMA Part 2, 2010. Blood of Patriots, 2011. The Ron Paul Uprising, 2012. Peddling Influence, 2013. Nothing for 2014, and then he died in August of 2015. If you'll remember another independent filmmaker, David Crowley, who was working on Gray State. I find it interesting that he, quote, died in December of 2014. So back to back, 2014 and 15, these independent filmmakers that were supposedly exposing the coming New World Order and secret governments, etc., died just 1 year apart. I ran into something the other day because I had really completely forgot about William Lewis. I think I've seen one out of all of these documentaries that he made, the 9/11 in Plain Sight that he made in 2004, and I don't even think I watched it till 2008. Some of you guys may have seen some of these, but I ran across something the other day that brought him back to my memory, and it was an excerpt from Enemy of the State, Camp FEMA Part 2, that was released back in 2010. Keep in mind, this was 13 years ago, so it was long before Event 201 or any of the other things. So I'm going to share that clip with you now. Just some quick, my thoughts on this. My thoughts on William Lewis and David Crowley. I believe that they're part of the controlled opposition machine, predictive programming. Both of them kind of rub shoulders with people, if you know what I mean. David Crowley was trying to push his Gray State in Hollywood. They were going to make it a movie, then they were going to make it a TV series. And as you know, a lot of TV series, they put the truth out there and disguise it as entertainment. So I know a lot of people think this guy was such a great martyr and hero, but keep in mind, he was part of the machine as well. You know, they tell you what they're going to do, disguise it as entertainment, mix some untruths in with some truths to get you diving down rabbit holes and keep you busy. That's just my opinion. But I'm going to share the clip that I saw the other day, and keep in mind, again, this was 13 years ago, long before Event 201. So without further ado, let's roll it.
And you know, that's not the point. I don't care how safe and effective it is. That was not the point. It was to have the government was going to force an elixir inside of my flesh without my willing consent. Not going to happen.
I was working for one of the local hospitals as a security officer, and my supervisor notified me that there was a training opportunity. A team was being formed with Homeland Security, and they asked me to be part of this team, and so I hoping to get some extra training and also see an insight of what actually was going on with Homeland Security. I accepted the offer and volunteered to be on this team. All they told us that it would be training on chemical, nuclear, and biological terrorism.
We've been taught for several years that nuclear, chemical, biological agents and effects are out there by several of our enemies to use at any given time.
They showed a lot of slides of police officers or firemen dealing with a chemical fire or dealing with some type of chemical spill. So they would show pictures of bodies, either still alive or dead that had been exposed to different weapons, so that that fear factor started setting in, and they were letting us know that how serious this was.
Now to the latest on H1N1 and new figures showing a four-fold increase in its death toll.
Primarily our job as law enforcement would be to remove the people from their homes. They told us that there would be usually the city buses or school buses would be brought into the neighborhoods. We would go door to door in teams, and we would evacuate the people from their homes and take them to a decontamination area. They told us that this would be a rough thing for us to do, that we needed to prepare ourselves physically and mentally for the fact that we are removing people from their homes, that a lot of people aren't going to want to go. They may not realize that there's some type of danger out there, they told us, and that it would be for their greater good for us to take them to these decontamination areas for their safety. So we talked about having to actually go door to door, knock on the door, explain to them what's going on, that they need to come with us so that for their safety, so they can be decontaminated, because they may already be exposed. And they told us that people aren't going to want to leave their home, but this is not an option, that once the orders are given that a mass evacuation must happen, it has now become law.
If you've been diagnosed with probable or presumed 2009 H1N1 or swine flu in recent months, you may be surprised to know this. The odds are you didn't have H1N1 flu. In fact, you probably didn't have flu at all.
We were told that takedown tactics would be necessary. Some of these people will not go willingly. We must take them down. Of course, they brought out, most law enforcement are familiar with the zip tie handcuffs, the plastic zip tie handcuffs, and that's what we would be using because they're cheap and easy to use. And take someone down, handcuff them, remove them out of their home, and place them to the bus that would be awaiting on the street to take them out. They also talked to us about the fact that a lot of homeowners have a weapon in the home, especially in this area. I mean, this is southwest Missouri, so there's a lot of, it's a fairly gun-friendly state, and they warned us about that there's going to be homeowners that may have a gun in the home or may have a gun on their person. So be prepared to use tasers, pepper spray, and possibly even lethal force.
But there were four of them with rifles and holding on us with our hands in the air until they got in our boat.
So they got on the boat and they asked us, do you have any loaded weapons? Yes, we do. They're in the two back compartments. Wayne went to show him where the gun was. And he screams, don't touch it. Don't even move. I'll get it.
We've removed them from their homes. We put them on a bus. The bus goes to a designated quarantine area, which might be the local hospital, it might be a local church, might be the local school or a local community center. The buses would pull in. There would be armed security already there. We would remove the people off of the buses, and they would get in a line in front of that tent, and that's where they would go in to be decontaminated.
Local, state, federal, and private agencies, they are all taking part in a week-long domestic emergency response exercise. They're testing their ability to respond to multiple disasters in the Chicago area.
Our job would be to go around the building, find every exit, and make sure that it's secure with chains and padlocks, so that there would only be one entrance and one exit only.
You're looking at behind me is the triage area that is being set up to deal with the victims.
The people get off of the buses, we line them up. Then they told us, and this was the part that really started bothering me, that before they can enter this decontamination area, they must be stripped naked so that they can be decontaminated. And they said that, people are not going to want to do this. It could be snowing outside, it could be sleeting, it could be raining, it does not matter. They must be stripped down naked. An officer on either side of the line right at the entrance of these tents, armed, ordering someone to remove their clothing. If they did not remove them, they were taken to the ground, handcuffed, and the clothing would be removed by force. So they're stripped down naked, possibly handcuffed, and then it's inside of that tent is going to be like an assembly line of sorts. You've got 2 or 3 different stations. The first one, they come in and they hose them down. Now, everyone working in this, and these are going to be your medical staff and your first responder staff, and they're in moon suits, non-rebreather moon suits. They hose them down. They have large scrub brushes, and this is something afterwards we did in training of how to do this. You'd have a bucket with soap and water, and they would clean you down. They would go to the, kind of move you down to the next person, and they would rinse you off. Next person would dry you off. And then at the end, you would receive a vaccination. They specifically told us that there would be, most likely in every scenario, there would be vaccinations given, because they don't know what you may have come in contact with. Now, did they go into detail of what that vaccine would be? No, they did not. But they did say that there would be vaccinations, and then they would receive clothing, which most likely would be some type of jumpsuit or hospital-type scrubs like you would see at a jail. They are given those, and then they're escorted inside the building where they will stay. That they would be there until released by the local government, or they would be there until they would be removed to transfer to another more secure facility. They didn't go into detail of what type of more secure facility, but I guess you could use your imagination of what we're talking about. And I'm sitting there, and I was trying to figure out, I'm thinking, why the vaccinations? I mean, there could be some things if it was a pandemic virus. Maybe I could see that, but most vaccines need to be given before you're exposed to the virus for them to work. You don't get the flu and then get the flu vaccine. It usually doesn't work that way. It's usually beforehand that you have to get it. But they said several times that at the end of this decontamination line, you would be given a vaccine, you would be given clothing, and then taken into the quarantine area.
Under a program sponsored by the Department of Homeland Security, police officers were trained to go door to door, removing people from their homes with deadly force if necessary, escorting the people to school buses, and being delivered to a decontamination area, usually at a school or local church, where the subjects will be hosed down, scrubbed down, given a series of vaccinations, and held prisoner until they can be transferred to a more secure facility. The Department of Homeland Security has these programs embedded in the policing communities across the United States, just waiting for orders to be given.